In today's lecture, we're going to be building out an application similar to the ones before. MVC design pattern will be putting data in the app state, rendering that data to the page. But a big part of today's lecture and this application is actually focusing on user-generated content. So we have had lots of user interactions with our apps, but never has a user been given essentially the control to add a piece of information to the website. There'll be a lot of form stuff today with HTML. Forms can be kind of tricky, but you shouldn't be afraid of them. Usually just the first two or three are maybe a little hard to get on the page and get kind of laid out right. Thankfully, Bootstrap library makes that pretty easy. And then kind of handling how that data gets out of the form and into the application. That's also maybe just like a little bit of a speed bump there, a little road bump, but it's certainly something that we'll go over. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and go through the template building process with the BCW create again. That way you can just see it. We like to call this Greg's List, application where users can list things to sell. I'm gonna pick the MVC template. I do not want an extra directory, npm, no extra templates in there. Cool. Go into Greg's List. I will open this up in VS Code. I'm going to stick this on the side here. Yeah, I wanted this one. Again, I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra space for my code editor. And Greg's List is green, first try. There we go, nice. Totally a distinct application that does not try to ape off of anything else. So where do you start in this template, or where do you start in this pattern? That can sometimes be a very tricky question. There's so many places to start now, right? Where in the past it's almost been, I got one JavaScript file, I've got one HTML file, so I've got to be putting something in one of those, right? In our case, there's tons of files. Do I start with the controller? Do I start with the model? Do I start with my index HTML? I generally say you need to start in one of two places. You either need to start in your index HTML and you're going to kind of be like roughly building maybe what the website looks like, or you need to be starting in the model and you need to be starting with, essentially the data and what that data is going to look like. Knowing your data and how that data is going to essentially be represented on the page can certainly help you build a lot of those decisions moving forward. So we're going to start with the model. We're going to build the model out first, try and draw that model to the page, and then after that we can start adding in different user interactions. Go to my terminal, new terminal, BCW live. I'll probably shrink this down just a little bit. Cool, we got Greg's List with just our little template in here. Okay, I'm gonna go to models. I'm going to create a new model. This is the car. Greg's List, you could potentially sell whatever you want on Greg's List. We're gonna sell cars in this lecture. So we will export class car, taking a constructor. We'll kind of go the same road with data, right? And we'll do this dot make equals data dot make. This dot model equals data dot model. This dot year equals data dot year. We're selling a car. This dot price equals data dot price. We might want to let them include an image of the car. This dot, maybe we'll call this image URL equals data dot image URL. Because we'll have them kind of go find an image URL. So we got to make, model, year, price, image URL. What else could we do? This might be, we need a color, right? That makes sense. This dot color equals data dot color. We can certainly add in a lot more stuff here to really fill out this car. These are probably some pretty good kind of like starting values or things to consider first. A lengthy description about the car. Is the title new or used? Is it four-wheel drive capable? What kind of engine's in it? All sorts of different things like that. Is it a hybrid vehicle? Is it an electric vehicle? things along those lines. Those are different properties that we could add into this constructor. We could keep adding more properties in here to really define the car out the best we can to, however we need to for our website. Something to keep in mind as we're building a website, driven by essentially user created data, that is more information that our form has to take in, and that is more information that the user then has to input into the form. Now, we're going to kind of show off some ways so that maybe the user doesn't have to enter in everything, because that's kind of nice, right? There are times where, there are certain assumptions that could be made about certain vehicles or sellings or items when users generate content that you don't necessarily need to fill out everything, and we can kind of fill in some of that stuff for you. But let's kind of look at that for a second, okay? We've kind of defined what a car is, and what I like to do is I like to kind of start that first template. So we'll get the card template, okay, as a getter, and I'm just gonna return HTML, and I'm just gonna put that tiny div in here and do this dot make, this dot model. Again, starting with a very, very small template, because I'm eventually going to want to draw this data to the page. And if I just start with something like really small, that makes it very easy for me to test my draw. I do want an extra bracket in there. And then I can always come back and update this template to look really nice visually, right? Kind of make it more of like a card and put that information on the page, okay? So I kind of have a definition of what my data is going to hold and what it might look like. So a good next step is to jump over to our app state. I'm just doing Control P, typing in app state. This is just kind of a quick way to jump between files instead of having to kind of dig through your files over here. And I'm going to make some space over here. I'm going to say cars is an array. And let's do new car. Let's make sure that gets imported. Probably another good time to show things off, right? As I go to make a new car, now that we've kind of switched to this idea that a car just takes in data and it doesn't take in all of those different parameters. Sometimes it's a little hard when you're over on this side because you're like, what does a car have, right? We don't really know what a car takes in. So similar to how you can make types like this to say like, hey, this example is about to be something. In our last lecture, we kind of did that with Gotchamon. We can actually kind of define what data is going to be in a similar way. So if you actually kind of do that /** tab, it'll basically say that, hey, data is anything. But we could actually say that data has a make string, a model string, a year, number, a price, number, image, URL, number. We don't want that comma right there. We want that to be a colon. And a color string like that. We can actually define essentially what data needs. And then when we come in here, it's going to be like, yo, you can't make a car. You need these things. And so if I start to type out make, it pops up. So we'll say make Mazda model Miata year 1998, color red, and then image URL. We need an image URL and we need a price. So we'll do 9,000 there. It is not happy with Type string is not assignable to type number. Did I make the image URL a number? I did. That should be a string. This doesn't actually make the code itself do anything when the code runs. Nothing really changes, but this does essentially give us helpers as we're writing things out. Let's go to unsplash.com here, and let's see if we can find a red Miata. Maybe not. Looks like we got some black ones in here, but maybe we'll just take this one right here. Now we'll say black, like that. I don't know if the year's right. I don't know if those prices are right. That car might not even be for sale, but it's all kind of just an example, anyways. Okay, let's do one more. New car. In fact, this may be one of the times where copying and pasting something is actually maybe all right. It's good to put a couple pieces of data in your app state inside your array, because when we draw this data, we want to make sure that it's able to draw different things. If I just put one thing in my app state, I could potentially, just set up that draw to draw only the Mazda Miata. We want to create at least two things kind of in these early steps so that we can see how that template that we eventually create differs between different versions of data or different data inside of our app state. Let's go ahead and create a controller. This is the cars controller. We might as well create a service while we're here, although we probably won't use it right away. Okay, and I'll probably just do class cars service and our export cars service. Nope, I do that every single time. We want a lowercase instanced version of it versus our uppercase one, and I'm just going to leave it like this. Cars controller, car service. I'm just going to leave it empty. We'll eventually come back to this and build some stuff in, but not right now. Cars controller. So we're going to have our export class cars controller constructor, like a constructor in the controller, so we can do things like log car controller. Ooh, look at that. Boom. Car controller. Okay. And we can kind of get the startings of our draw cars going here. One of the big things is even if we create this controller and we come back to our page, when we look inside of our console, we'll notice that we only got the console log for the home controller. We don't see our little car controller right here, right? That's again because I can create all these files, but if I essentially don't register the controller with our app.js, I'd like to kind of try and keep these in order, right? The home controller is brought in here. Go ahead and say that I don't need the home controller, but put in a cars controller, new cars controller. Make sure that when you hit tab, you don't access the property. You access this orange kind of tree one, not the box, but this like orange tree. That'll bring your import in. And now we'll see that when my page loads, I get that car controller. Okay. We probably want to draw the cars when the page loads. So we could say this dot draw cars. And it's kind of hard to tell if anything's happening here. So why don't we toss in another log. Pencil. Getting really fancy with the emojis here today. Draw cars. Cars controller loaded. Draw cars. Cool. Let us const cars, app state, cars. We need to essentially get the data or a reference of the data out of the app state, right? So we need to bring in the reference to our cars here. And this draw is pretty typical to a lot of the other stuff that we've been doing. We'll say let cars content equal an empty string, and then cars for each car, cars content plus equal car dot card template. Card template. You're going to be hearing a lot of card. Yep, sometimes you just got to power through some of that stuff, right? And then we'll do our element. So we need to go grab an element. I don't have an element right now, so why don't we actually open up the index HTML as well. Scroll past all this boilerplate stuff down here into the main. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get rid of everything in here. Main, class, container. Create a section with a row. I'll put my ID of listings right here, because this is where my cars are going to be listed, right? And yeah, I'll hopefully see car listings on in here. So we'll kind of copy that ID out. Let's do listing element equals document get element by ID listings elms inner HTML equals cars content. And just like that, after we save that, we actually see the Mazda Miata and the Honda Civic show up. Again, right, just doing some very small things to kind of set us up for success. Just building out a super tiny template with just those divs there. And yeah, just kind of building out a draw that works in the same way and drawing on that page load. These logs were actually crucial as well, right? Part of that testing process is making sure that files are running at the right time, or they're loading at the right time, and the right function is running at the right time. That's all very important stuff. And if it loads and runs at the right time, we can actually essentially do the functionality that we want to do. Cool. So why don't we actually spruce these up just a little bit? Again, usually what I will do is I'll create kind of like a dummy section down here. No, this is my dummy section for testing, right? Something we'll see if I type in like, hello, cars here, right? When I load my page, you'll see that it said that for a second. Very quick, very easy to miss, right? And that's just because I'm drawing in here. So as those cars get drawn in, whatever was there just erases away. So I kind of need like a little dummy area to build some of this stuff out into. So I'm gonna do call 4, probably set these to like actually like call 6, call MD4, something along those lines. We'll do a card again, really relying on Bootstrap for a lot of their stuff here. An image with card image. Let's go back and grab one of these car images so we can kind of test out what some of this is going to look like. Not terrible. And after that, we'll do the card body. Maybe we'll wrap everything in the card body. What does that look like? That looks different. I don't know if it looks better. That's not too bad, actually. Yeah. We'll wrap everything in the card body with like a padding one. We should also probably use H3 in here. Honda Civic. We'll do our 1999 Honda Civic. That's probably way too big. Let's just do an H4. 1999 Honda Civic. Class. Like that. And then maybe we'll put a P tag right below it. What other properties do we have to look at? Color and price. Cool. So maybe we'll just put in a little class text end, and then we'll do a white. Sure, $98,000. $9,800. font weight bold. Honestly, this should probably be like a heading font. So we'll do $19.99 Honda Civic, $9,800. Maybe put the dollar sign right there, and maybe we can even do like a text success to make it kind of green. Honda Civic, maybe put another P tag, white. Maybe like a little too tall now, so maybe we'll just kind of leave it like that. Actually, we could get a little fancy here if we wanted to include kind of the color of the car. It would only really work if it was an actual color like hex code or a color built into the style, but we could put in maybe we did like a span with like an MDI circle. So we do something like this. Okay, and then when we get to our actual templating, we can create a style on this so that we can actually change the color of it out with whatever color they pick. As long as that works with CSS. So that might not work with everything, but that could be interesting. That could be something that's interesting to do. I think we might also want shadow on here though. Oh man, that looks terrible. Does Bootstrap have text shadow? We might need to do that ourselves. So why don't we actually create this really fast? Let's go to our style. We're just gonna say text shadow 0, 0, 4 pixels black. Okay, yeah, we'll do that. And maybe we'll also do margin left auto. Does that move it over? No, it doesn't. That's all right. I don't know how many other custom styles we'll have. We probably won't have too many. We might need to do something with the different images, but I do think this is a pretty good template to start with. Let's copy that, and let's go over to our car model, and we will replace this make and model with this. And as I save, you'll see that, both of my cars come in as Honda Civics. So let's swap that information out here with this here. This make. This model. This price. Got the double dollar signs here so that one is part of the interpolation, the other one is just the dollar sign that appears like actually there in the template. And last but not least, our image, say this dot image URL. Now we can actually see that gave us our different cars there. Am I missing anything? 1998 Honda Civic. So let's try and do something fancy with the color that we have in here. I bet we can do a style tag, color, this color. That worked. Oh yeah, this one's black too, so that did kind of work. If they pick a color though that isn't actually a CSS color though, that would have an issue, but maybe it would just default to black or something along those lines. So maybe that's all right. Let's go back over here. We can kind of comment out this dummy section. So that's not there anymore. I think I'm also going to change the gap on this row to maybe like 2. Kind of split those cars around. Margin on the Y, like 2, to kind of split those like that. Maybe we'll also add in a section that just has like an H2 or something that's like cars for sale. Our HR, cars for sale. Cars for sale. Got a couple car cards here. I might just make this margin on the bottom because that header should kind of move things around. I think that looks pretty decent. We got our 2 cars, and then obviously something that we can always test. We can always make a third. I'm basically out of cars at this point. Maybe let's just click on a car and we'll see if another, ooh, how about this one? copy image link. This is a Volkswagen bug. This is like a pretty old one. Does it tell me the year in here anywhere? It doesn't. So we'll just say 1990. Price $6,000. Teal. See what happens there. Go back. Okay, so it did give us about a similar color. I guess teal is a color in there. So that is kind of working. We'll kind of notice though that the image is now kind of messed up, or maybe it's just because this is too long, but our image is also too tall. So we probably do want to create a particular style here. Card image. I probably want to do a height. Let's try 15 EM. Ooh. 10 EM. 10 EM feels about right. But the images are starting to like squish and squash as things are kind of getting like bigger. So I think what we actually want to do is also do an object fit cover on there. Ooh, it's very subtle. Oops, let's try commenting that out. It's not so subtle. If I change this back to 15, you'll see that it's pretty obvious once I remove that what's happening, right? So an object fit cover can really be a lifesaver at times. And we'll go back to, we'll do like 8 maybe. Yeah, something like that's fine. This is maybe a tiny bit of a problem. It is causing our one card to be a little bit taller. Kind of messes things up. So we might actually come in here and change. I guess we could just do this to a VW bug. I feel like that's kind of a cop-out. So what we might do is we might actually put the year somewhere else. So what if we just put the year next to the color, like that? And then maybe we'll div, and we will wrap the span in the div. That did not work right. Is all of this in the H5? Yeah. There we go. So we'll make the make and model on the top, the year and color, and the price last. These are not my best Craigslist card, but that's okay. Card shadow. Not too bad. It's not terrible. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible. So we'll kind of move on, because a big part of this is actually to be able to create these, not just by going into the app state and adding in more cars. Someone actually needs to be able to type this information in. So let's come back to our index.